welcome to fmtraining.tv. My name is Margaret. I'll be your broadcast engineer for today. I am here with the wonderful Calvin Moseman.
Good afternoon.
Yes, seriously, it's great to have him on. Calvin has been a senior engineer of ours for many, many years, and we are lucky to have him on helping with the beginner series that we're discussing while Richard is currently away. Real quick, let's talk about our live stream training schedule. So today we're doing many relationships. This is an interesting concept that a lot of people end up having trouble with and issues with, so it'll be fun to talk about today. Tomorrow we'll be doing calculations, functions, and operators. So introduction to calculations. Monday will be most common script uses. There are scripts you're probably going to end up using pretty much in every database. Good example is a startup script. You should have a startup script. So we'll probably be talking about that and stuff like that on a Monday. Tuesday will be document management, always a fun discussion. Wednesday will be navigation, device screen size, basically how do you move around inside your database, and also iPads and iPhones, and those all require different screen sizes and for you to make adjustments for those screens. Also, touching is different than clicking. You can have really small buttons to click that you can't touch with your fingers. If you'd like to support the channel, we'd greatly appreciate it. We do this 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, for free. But these subscriptions help with everything. People who have bought it, thank you very much. We greatly appreciate it. These are, like I said, these are kind of like 100 plus hours of video content. They cover a lot of topics. People come and always watch us and interact with us live, which is always good. We enjoy having people here to ask us questions and interact with us seriously. But sometimes I always get a message going hey, so the live stream format doesn't work for me, but I want to learn FileMaker. This is kind of your answer. We basically do highly animated videos that come in 7 to 20 minute length of time. We talk about pretty much everything about FileMaker under the sun. We talk about server, Go, WebDirect, everything about Pro you could want to know. That's a big discussion. I think we're good. I know we have a couple people in Zoom. Hello, welcome. So, Calvin, what are we doing today?
Today we are picking up the conversation where we left off yesterday. So yesterday we were talking about one-to-many relationships, and we had a demo file with contacts and companies. So we had companies with multiple contacts, so one-to-many from companies to contacts. And now we're talking about many-to-many relationships. And I'm curious if some people have some ideas about some scenarios of where a many-to-many relationship would be. And I'd like to see what the most interesting many-to-many relationship might be that somebody has an idea on. But one thing that I get asked to do pretty regularly is to update FM starting point to have a many-to-many relationship between accounts and contacts, so that one contact can be associated with multiple companies or multiple accounts in FM starting point. So we're going to take that scenario and use it for our demo today. Let me go ahead and share my screen. Okay, so we got student to teachers. Good, student to teachers. Someone said that one. That was one that Claris often uses for their demo purposes when talking about many-to-many relationships.
I'm on Zoom, so I can give you one right now.
Okay, what's that?
Yeah, if you have a company that does a project, but then you have other companies that are involved in the same project, you might want many-to-many.
Many between companies and
different companies and different projects.
Yep. So when we think about that many-to-many, whether that's people within a company, companies within a project, the first many years ago, the first many-to-many relationship I set up was projects to staff people. And so we got to think about what that table is in the middle. Now, one of the things that we can call it is, and the name that you'll hear is a join table. So we're joining companies with contacts, we're joining projects with companies, we're joining students and teachers, but and sometimes you'll see those named as, they'll name the table join _ students _ teachers, or join _ company _ contact, join _ company _ project, which doesn't really capture what that is like from an organizational standpoint, from understanding what the data is, from understanding the data structure. That might kind of help us understand what it is. It is a join table, but it's better when we get a name for that, So what might we call a students to teachers? Because students are going to be assigned to teachers multiple times. There's probably going to be a class between there. And students to teachers ends up being a lot more complicated than just two tables. You also have class members. So you might have students And each student, it can be a class member, and each class member is assigned to a class. Now that class is associated with a class library, and it's a teacher can be associated with multiple classes that they're teaching, and that ends up being pretty complicated. So with those many-to-many relationships, we want to think about names we can give those. So in the example that I gave, the first join table I built, I called it join_staff_projects. But a better name would have been assignments, because it's an assignment of that staff person to a specific project. In the companies, related to a many-to-many relationship between companies and projects, it might be parties involved or something like that. So defining what that is really helpful. So in this app, we've got a many-to-many between company and contact. Does anyone have any ideas what we might call that? Many-to-many from companies to contacts. I don't want to call it join. We don't want to say join company contact, because that's not very descriptive. It doesn't really capture what the business process is. How about we could say maybe members. They're members of that group. So let's go ahead and create that. Nobody chimed in. And I'm going to, just for simplicity, we're going to delete these once again. I'm going to have an ID member, and we'll give this a P for primary key. And I'm just going to make this serial number. M for member, change. And now we're going to give this, it needs a couple more IDs. Now we'll notice in those other tables that we had, company has no foreign keys. Contacts had one foreign key because it was related, a one-to-many from between companies and contacts. But in this case, because this is the in-between table, the join table, this many-to-many relationships table, it's going to need two foreign keys. We're going to do ID contact. That's a foreign key. And ID company, and that's also a foreign key. And we're just going to leave this blank. Now over here, it already created this members relationship table occurrence here. So I'm going to leave that there. And just for the sake of simplicity right now, because we're not really talking about anchor buoy so much, I'm going to connect these. So ID company, the primary key ID company from company goes to the ID company foreign key in members. And now the ID contact primary key in contacts goes to the ID contact foreign key in members. And you'll notice, let's go ahead and just make this. We're going to take out our numbers so we can just focus on these names. You'll notice here that we have, when we make these small, you'll notice that we have you'll notice we have our caret here. It's showing one-to-many. We've got this in our relationship. FileMaker sees that we've got one primary key to many foreign keys, many records in members, and we have the opposite going on over here, many to one. So these members becomes this join table in between. And how are we going to get that to work? Let's go ahead and do we have any questions at this point?
Multi-value field key to another table, question mark.
Okay, so that is a good question, and I have used that method. So the important thing about that is that that only works if you don't need to save data concerning the member. So maybe we should give this, because right now this member is only storing IDs. we're going to say title. So now we have to track what the title is for this person in that group. And I'll say, okay. And this actually came up in RCC's app. We don't have, it's not structured quite like this. So we had a client that I was talking to this guy that had a record in our app under one company. And my colleague was talking to the same guy who had another record in our company app under another company. And so we were talking to the same person, and it was causing a lot of confusion because we didn't realize we were talking to the same person. But here, if it had been set up like this, we might be able to see that relationship and see that person existed in multiple places. So let's go ahead and set this up so that we have a new portal here. So I just deleted our old portal that I had broken. And we want to see members. And I'll say OK. And we want to put the title in there. Say OK. And we also want to see the contact name. Put that in there. And just for making this, just to follow what's going on here, I'm going to put that foreign key from the contact foreign key in here. Okay. So, and let me go ahead and just put company up here so we know where we are. All right. So we're not seeing any fields here. We're not seeing any records because we don't have allow creation via relationship enabled. Let's go ahead and just jump over to members though. I'm going to open up members. There's no records here anyway. And let me open up a new window so we can see all our tables at once. Here's our contacts. So let's say we've got two companies. We got ABC Company and the Jackfruit Company. And let's say we want to assign somebody, Johnny Appleseed, to both companies. So we'll create, and I'm just going to do this by hand so you can see where these records exist. So we've got two companies over here, and we've got a bunch of contacts over here. And let me go ahead and just remove, because we're not really looking at this company field anymore. Here we go. And so we're going to create this relationship so that they are, so it's related many to many. Let me go ahead and create a new record here. And so it already created our primary key, which we don't need to reference anywhere because this is a many to many. But it is important for each record, no matter what the table, even if we aren't referencing it, to have a primary key, a unique identifier. I'm going to grab this company ID and put it in our company foreign key. Now you'll see immediately once I did that, it created this line. And so that's the related record. Now we don't see any data in there because there's no data besides the IDs in this middle table, the many-to-many table. Now let's go ahead to Johnny Appleseed. We'll copy his foreign key, paste that in, and now we can see Johnny Appleseed is part of this company. I'm going to go ahead and put a placeholder text here, give it a drop-down list, create a value list for that row, and we'll say CEO, CEO, COO, CFO, and then underling. Okay, so here we can say, okay, he is the CEO of this company. Now, we want to actually add him to two companies. So in ABC Company, Johnny Appleseed is the CEO, and we have that created here. And now, so we see what's going on, just so we can see in the relationships what's going on here. We are starting a company. We see in the portal the members' records. And then because we have the contact ID in here, we can see Johnny Appleseed's name from the contacts table. Now, if we change anything in here, that will, he wants to be a little more professional now that he's CEO. He wants to go by John Appleseed. We will, we change it in his contact record, and we see that change carry across as we're looking through that relationship. Before we create the next record, do we have any questions?
Yes.
So
Is
okay.
the PK and TO members necessary?
So so we're not referencing it at this point. Someday we might need to reference it, and it is necessary because you definitely want every record to have a unique identifier. If you export that data and it's saved in a CSV and you're bringing it into some other system, or if you're bringing it back into the same system, you want to know if that what that primary key is. It might be unreferenced, but you definitely want a primary key in every table. And especially if you start doing things like syncing, any sync feature would be based on that primary key, even if it's not referenced in the relationship diagram. So yes, you definitely want every table that's storing data should have a primary key. The only places where I might not have a primary key is a global table or a virtual list table, something like that. So here we got one record. I'm going to create a new one. And this time we want to add Johnny Appleseed to the Jackfruit Company. So we are going to grab his contact ID and put that into contacts. And actually, let's start with the company ID so we can see how that goes. Start with the company ID. We put it in there. Now we see this align. And grab his contact ID and put it in the foreign key. And there we have, we see that data show up, and we can give him a different title. Now, in the Jackfruit Company, he's only an underling. And so we see that we can have Johnny Appleseed in two places with different data saved, different data identifying him in each one. Now, sometimes, depending on the way your app is set up, maybe you are tracking somebody's contact information, maybe their cell phone number. And if you change the cell phone number in one place, you want it to change across the board. So this would be a great, with all of their relationships, with all of the places that they're connected. Now, if you do that in this case, it would change across the board if that data is saved in the contact table, just like we see it in this instance where we changed John's first name from Johnny to John. We saw that change across the board. Now, maybe they have some information that's unique to that company. So maybe they have a company email. You could stick the email into that membership area. In this case, we are saving the title in the membership table. So we know, oh, at the Jackfruit Company, when I'm speaking with them, I actually want to be talking to Richard. Let's just add Richard in here. So we'll create a new one. We'll assign it to the Jackfruit Company here. And we'll put Richard on there. There it is. And now we know at the Jackfruit Company, Richard is the head cheese, and he's the person we want to talk to, not this underling Johnny Appleseed. But when we're over here at the ABC Company, he speaks with a little more authority, so we know who we're talking about, what we're talking about. Let's go and kind of take some ideas here and make some adjustments and see how we can make this a little more user-friendly. I'm jumping between windows. This is a lot of work to get those records to line up and match. So let's do something a little different to make it easier to create these records, and something that we can maybe use in FM Starting Point or your app. So what I want to do here is I'm going to say allow creation of records in this table via this relationship. So we're going to be able to create new member records without having to go to that table and say create new. The next thing I'm going to do, which we're going to do pretty fast, so we'll want to, because this isn't really about value lists, I'm going to create a new dynamic value list called Contact ID Dynamic. So I'm just saying that I'm grabbing the contact ID, the primary key, that'd be the primary key. I'm going to say also display values from a second field, and I'm going to say only show values from second field. So I'll save this. And here, override data formatting with value list. So now when I go to browse mode, instead of seeing the ID, I see John Appleseed. And because I have that value there, I'm going to, I don't really need to see the field because it's already taken care of. What's going on over here? Did I accidentally insert the current time? That's a little weird. Okay, so now we have this value list. So we have allow create record via relationship enabled. And we have this value list so I can very quickly see, oh, I want to add Jack to this ABC company. I want to add John Doe to this ABC company. And he's the CEO, and he's the CFO. And so here we're very quickly creating those records. You can see our record count went up to 5. And nothing changed over here because we're using existing records, existing contact records, and those were automatically added. Now, let's see a problem happen. So let's say something happens, and for whatever reason, somebody deletes a record over here. So I deleted Johnny Appleseed. And you'll notice that now that that relationship is invalid, we lost that name. We lost the name. And so we're seeing just the ID and no value list ID because the value list is now broken because that data is gone. How can we get around something like this? Let's go ahead and go to members. And we have a title field. I'm going to also add a name field. I'll say contact name. And I'll make this a lookup, say storage. I'm sorry, auto enter is a lookup. And we're going to start from members and we're going to go to contacts and we're just going to grab the contact name. Okay. Okay. So now that I have this, let's go ahead and go into, we're going to switch this to a list view. Let's go ahead and remove the current record indicator in list view. Let's go ahead and look at all the fields. We want to see the title. We want to see the name. Let's go to browse mode. Okay, so here we see we've got no values in the contact name. But sometimes we want to save those values in that join table, in that members table, so that we can see in other, if records are accidentally deleted, or if something changes, we see historically what that information used to be. So if I go to the contact foreign key and just type that back in, and you know that's not working because that's the one I deleted. Let's put this one back in. So I removed and pasted back in con3. And as soon as I saved that, it looked up that record Richard. And so now when I go to browse mode, and let's go ahead and what we'll do, make this a little narrower, move it to the side, bring this back over. And here I'm going to show that contact name field. And I don't want a value list on this. I actually don't even want people to be able to change it. I just want them to be able to see it. Now, if I re-enter Jack, re-enter John Doe, it refreshes those. A faster way to do this is to just select the contact foreign key, go to records, and say relookup field contents. And let me just show you how over here, oh, maybe we already did these, updated these. Well, let me just remove them so you can see how fast this is. So you'll see there's no contact name in any of these. If I go to contact and say record, relookup field contents, it immediately relooks those up and pulls in those names. Now, if I want to fix this, I can go in here and create a new con2 and say Johnny Appleseed is back. And I can either go in here and fix that record or run that relookup so that those names those name fields repopulate. So this is just some techniques to generating those records in the many-to-many relationship and how to populate that data in the many-to-many relationship. Do we have any questions at this point?
What if for the CEO it's a one-to-one relationship, but the other titles are many-to-many?
Yeah, good question. So say there's only one CEO. We're not going to do multiple CEOs. So we've got a second person who thinks he should be CEO. Jack has decided he's going to be CEO. Well, usually you could do, so right now we also have this one-to-many relationship so let me go ahead and just copy this. We've got a one-to-many relationship between contacts and members and contacts. And if I go to company, and that's based on this company, so I guess so if there's one CEO, you could put an ID in the company field table if you wanted to. I probably wouldn't do this, but you could say contact and then specify this is only the CEO. And now when I say okay, I'll go up here and say this is for the contact CEO. If you, for whatever reason, want to keep this separate from everything else. And browse. And now I can say, okay, Johnny Appleseed's the CEO. Now, the reason why I wouldn't do this is because we're not usually tracking who the CEO is. We're tracking everybody who's involved. So if you don't have the CEO listed here and you want to email everybody, grab everybody's email addresses with a calculation, that's just going to make it a little more complicated, pulling through two different relationships to grab that email address. If you're trying to do any reporting, it'd make it more difficult. So you could do maybe a script trigger that checks to see when you select CEO that's only selected once. And so there's a bunch of different methods for that to track, to make sure that somebody like CEO is only selected once. And that's more about the title field than it is the relationship of many-to-many between companies and contacts. Good question, though. Any other questions?
Let me know, Centauri, if that answers your question.
Thank you, Centauri.
Media Sandbox actually think they're joking, but I'll ask just in case I don't know something. Is Calvin's technique considered the party model?
The party model?
Like I said,
I haven't heard the party model before, but that sounds like something. So now I'm intrigued. What is the party model? Is that a joke or is that a thing? I'm guessing it's not a joke. I think that is a thing.
I couldn't tell. It's like a coin flip, so I'm like, it could possibly be a thing. So if you would, we don't know, Media Sandbox. So if you'd like to clarify, if in the process of clarification we ruined the joke, we're very sorry. Party model isn't a joke. NJ Adelaide.
I didn't think so. So I'm not familiar with the term party model. You can enlighten us. Is there any more questions?
No, that is the one question.
I like the name party model. I just need to know what it means. Yeah. So this is kind of a basic overview of how the many-to-many relationship works. But one key part of it is defining, like in our case, we said these are the members of this company. You could call it employees or whatever we want to call it. But defining it and giving it a name helps people understand, helps you understand the process or whatever the app is that you're building. This isn't not calling it a join table, calling it the assignments, calling it the parties involved, calling it the members. It's a much better technique for understanding the data and the workflow than just saying join table. That's really a key part of this. And once we think about that, then we think less about join table. Once you think about what problem you're solving and what data you're saving, then it becomes less about calling it a join table, and it's a little easier to explain to somebody and understand yourself. So if we go to FM starting point, I'm going to pull this up, and I wanted to look here, and you can interrupt me if we have any questions or an update on the party model. What are some many-to-many relationships in here? The first one that comes to mind for me is the invoices. So we've got the invoice, which is one-to-many to accounts, and many-to-one for, between accounts and invoices is one-to-many, projects to invoices is one-to-many, contacts to invoices is one-to-many. Sometimes you want multiple contacts involved in one of these, so you might have a many-to-many between invoices and contacts. But one that's already built in is a many-to-many between invoices and products. And that many-to-many we call in here is line items. People are when you say a line item, people know what you're talking about as far as an invoice. And here you can create a line item that's custom, that doesn't reference a product, but a lot of the power of having the products table and creating these invoices is from generating from the products list and having that many-to-many relationship. Another, obviously, estimates follows that same what is it called? That same flow of having the estimate and the estimate line items. Projects in FM starting point is kind of this middle. It's a middle table between a lot of different apps, or a lot of different modules in FM starting point. So this could become a many-to-many relationship between accounts and contacts. It could be bridging accounts and contacts, and it could be bridging between staff and other and accounts and such. So there's a few join tables, as we might call them, at FM starting point. We don't call them join tables because it's really a lot easier to understand what a project is, what an invoice is, or invoice line items, etc. Any follow-up information, any follow-up questions there?
No questions. I went Googling to find definitions of what the
there we
party model
go.
is.
Thank you,
So
Google.
I'm gonna read two things out loud. It alternately sounds like a very specific type of many-to-many relationship, or just another way to say many-to-many. The party relationship table stores relationships between parties and has two foreign keys to the party table. Is one definition, and another I've seen is that the party-to-party relationship pattern arises from the fact that persons and organizations have many characteristics in common, one or more names, one or more locations that may be shared with others, one or more communication methods that may also be shared.
Yeah, so it sounds like a party relationship is a many-to-many between records in the same table. So if we wanted to generate a relationship between one contact and another, I think that's what it's describing. Can you say that first one you read? You read first?
Yes. The party relationship table stores the relationships between parties and has two foreign keys to the party table.
Yeah, so it says two foreign keys, but it's not saying whether that's for the same table or not. So it could be the party model. It could be. Thank you for teaching me a new term here. I really appreciate it.
Better definition, which is a little bit of a paragraph. I'll read it just because it's interesting and because other people might be more familiar with party than they are with many-to-many. The party model is based on the idea that any customer can be represented as a party, which is a generic entity that has a unique identifier, a name, and some optional attributes, such as contact details, addresses, or preferences. A party can also have different roles, such as a buyer, seller, supplier, or partner, depending on the context and business logic. The party model allows you to store and query customer data without making assumptions about their type or structure, and to handle changes and variations easily. So
okay, Yeah, so party sounds like, so what that's sounding like to me is almost that relationship that was suggested at the beginning of our talk, when it was said there's a project with multiple companies or multiple contacts. So there's a many-to-many between projects and companies. So in that case, I think that would be, I called it parties involved. Did I call it parties involved?
You might have. I don't remember.
Maybe that's what brought up the party model. But I think that would be party model. And yeah, it could be. This might be something to add to Richard's Richard's list. Now, some other many people suggested some many-to-many relationships. There were students to teachers. We've got some here in this documentation. We have actors to movies. The join table would be the role, what the actor's role in that specific movie is. And we talk about that for a little bit.
Oh, we have another question.
Yeah,
how do you recognize join tables in FMSP?
How do I recognize them?
Yes. Looking at them in an anchor buoy context, how do you know it's a join table?
So how do you know it's a join table? So this is an interesting thing when it comes to FM starting point, is that it's not really about how the relationship functions, not necessarily how it looks in the relationship graph. And so some of those things, like the project possibly being a many-to-many between contacts, I don't think that would necessarily be seen through the relationship graph. But here's a few that stand out. So if there's a grandchild, that might be a many-to-many relationship. So here in invoices, we see the invoice, the line item, and the product. So we know that, and so this one is a join table between the two. It's more about being familiar with the data and the structure than it is seeing it. Here we've got products, audit log, and invoice. So the audit log, is this a many-to-many between products and invoices? I think it could be, and then it has an audit log. I don't know that I would really call this a join table. Let's look down here. So here is one of the ones that I explained and I didn't think we were going to find. So here, products or projects to contacts, the estimates functions kind of as a join table because there could be a many-to-many between projects and contacts through the estimates. Same with staff. So here's a few different things that could create that in which the estimates, expenses, and invoices kind of become a join table between different tables. Here's a grandchild that's not a join table. So we see staff to timesheets, that's a one-to-many. And then we see timesheets to line items, that's a one-to-many as well. Now, one thing to point out here as well that kind of shows if this is a one-to-many is here. Let's jump back up to the invoices. We'll see in our lines, we've got, if we focus on this, I don't know if we can actually see it here, but if we look at this relationship here between line items and invoices, you can see we've got one coming out of invoices and we've got that caret going to line items. So we know that's a one-to-many, and we see this is a many-to-one. So we know that this one in the middle is our join. But yeah, I haven't actually looked at the FM starting points relationship graph to thinking about which ones are join tables before. That's an interesting question. I hope that answers it a little bit better. And here we see, again, context estimates to staff. That kind of creates a many-to-many contacts to other contacts to accounts. Here's the line items join table. That's what I had prepared for today. And just to recap, we've got, when you think about many-to-many, that table that you're going to have in the middle, we want to focus on what function that table, the purpose for that table. Is it a party table? Is it a members table? Is it an assignments table? Is it a any number of those names? Try to avoid calling it a join table. In function, it's a join table, but what is its real purpose?
Yep, there you go. Oh, I have a question actually, since I have you here captive for the next 15 minutes. I always forget what the little equal signs, they change appearance depending on the relationship. I forget what that means.
Yeah,
You
so
bring up-
here,
Yeah. Does
we've
it
got
tell
a few different options. So this is equals. This does not equal. This is less than.
Mhm.
So this is better for numbers. This is less than or equal to. This is greater than or equal to. And this is Cartesian. That means everything is related to, it is a valid relationship to everything in the other table.
So it connects all of the fields. Okay.
Yep.
Got
All the
it.
records. All
Yeah.
the records.
No, I forgot that. I keep forgetting that exists as an option. So I guess it depends on what you're connecting between the two.
Yeah, for the join table, you would only use equals, but once you get into, and Nick Hunter likes to cover all these things, where
that track.
there's different uses for these. The greater than and less than options can really cause some performance hits. So I don't use those too often. I use Cartesian, does not equal, and equals all the time.
Good to know. Thank you. I personally forgot what that was. I'm like, oh, what is that again? So
Yep. Yeah, there's more than just equals in the relationship graph.
But equals is a good place to start, especially when you're a beginner.
Yeah, that's where you want to start.
Yeah, no, I'll have to go research party models to see what that is. So.
Yep. Yeah. Maybe add that to the curriculum.
Yeah, that would be, or at least like a way, because that's always like an interesting problem with this sort of thing, is that some people come into FileMaker with zero programming experience, but other people come in with having heavily experienced other database schema, other languages, and then they want to relate understandably, but that requires that we would know what they're relating it to explain, oh, this is similar, oh, this is not similar. So I think we're good. So thank you very much, Calvin. Seriously, this is always an interesting topic. We will see you all tomorrow. You all have a lovely day. Tomorrow will be calculations, which is always fun. So, and music.
Got a report of an individual up here who may be a FileMaker license. Well, it's potentially expired. Look at the back of that car right there. Looks like the FileMaker license has expired. Sir, I need you to step out of the vehicle. Sir, step out of the vehicle. Sir!